Hey everybody, welcome to Season 3 of Song Revolution. Get ready to ramp up your songwriting. Hey guys, John here. Welcome back to Song Revolution. It's always a delight to have you and to have the opportunity to speak into your lives, to help you fulfill your passionate calling to write songs, sing songs, record and release songs for Jesus, because he's done something incredible in your life. And he did something incredible in my life, so deep that that's why I'm still here and why we do everything we do at Nashville Christian Songwriters. I have a very special show for you today. I'm getting to turn the tables. I was recently on a show called Don and Steve Plus here in the Nashville area, and it was so delightful. It was so fun. I said, I love you guys, and I want you to be on my show. So they've been the longtime host of Don and Steve in the Morning on Moody Broadcasting Network, and they're just delightful people, a deep, deep history in music and really being on the other side of music and radio broadcasting and using the songs that we all want to write. So I'd like to welcome to Song Revolution today, Dawn Ray May and Steve Hiller. Dawn and Steve, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So good to have
it's good to
you
be
guys.
here.
It's good to be here.
Great studio.
So good.
Thank you. We've
love
been looking forward to this for a while, because when I came out to your studio for Dawn and Steve Plus, which we're going to be talking all about that today, we just had such a great time. I felt like it was just what a show should be and what an interview should be, and the camaraderie. And you can't always count on that, right? I mean, it's not always that automatic, right?
No, sir.
Do you remember your worst interview?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, some of them go south real fast.
Thought I was going to lose my job. It was that bad.
Oh, yeah. I owe Francesca Battistelli just an apology. Francesca, I'm sorry. I wasn't as prepared as I should have been for that one.
Yeah.
Oh, well. But, out of hundreds
I remember
of
putting my foot
shows.
in my mouth interviewing her years ago, too.
So you both need to apologize to her?
I think it was
Is that how
called
this
My Paper Heart.
Oh, yeah.
Was the name of her album. And I think, you hear the phrase paper tiger, right? And so that's what I said live on the air. I'm like, I screwed that one up.
Well, okay, let's pick on Francesca for just a minute, actually on ourselves, but I try to walk in as prepared as I can be, and that one I dropped the ball just a little bit, and as an interviewer, you try to never ask yes or no questions. Right?
Yep.
And boy, was I full of yes or no questions in that interview, because I was not ready. So Francesca, I'm sorry if you ever watch this. We love you. Please come back on the show. Well, let's dig into you guys, because you were for years on Moody Broadcasting. And how did that happen? And then we'll get to your current show. But what was that like? How did that happen? And
Ladies first.
Okay. Yeah, I had worked at a Christian radio station in Lexington, Kentucky when I was in college, and then I moved to Holland, Michigan, worked at a Christian radio station up there, and then moved to Middle Tennessee. And it turns out that the gentleman who started the Moody Radio Nashville station, he and I knew one another, but only by association, because we both lived in Holland, Michigan, and didn't know that. We both moved down here, and again, didn't know that. Met at church one day, and then for the first time saw each other in person. He asked, would you ever consider going back to morning radio? And I'm like, it's so early. If you get really serious about it, I will pray when you guys are really serious about it. The Lord would open the door, and I was there on payroll for 17 years. Even when I wasn't there full-time or part-time, I would come in and do share, or I would fill in for the guy who was the morning show host so that he could go on vacation, things like that. So been part of it for a long time.
So it was here in Nashville?
Yes.
It wasn't in Chicago?
Nope.
Okay.
Not me.
Not you?
Now, he.
Okay.
Yeah. I got into radio in high school just because it was an easy class credit. And my youth pastor, when I was growing up, was like, you should go to Moody Bible Institute. I'm like, I don't want to be a missionary pastor. I don't think that's what God has for me. And he's like, they have this radio thing. So he's like, go for a year, at least learn about the Bible. And so that was my plan. I was going to go to Moody for a year. I was going to learn about the Bible and figure out what God wanted me to do. And while I was there, I ended up going the communications route, started working for Moody Radio while I was a student. When I graduated, they asked me to stick around, gave me a job, and so I was there for about 15 years or so. Left for 10, and then after being gone for about 10 years, came back to Moody Radio, but this time in Nashville, because they reached out and said, would you ever come back? I'm like, not in Chicago, but maybe somewhere
Sure,
else.
yeah.
And they said, what about Nashville? And, doing mornings there and working with her. I'm like, yeah, let's do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
And have you had this deep radio voice since you were 13? I mean, what?
Kind of, yeah.
How could you not?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I can take no credit for it, but God has used it to kind of
Yes,
open up
he
doors
has,
and kick me
yeah.
through them. So
That's
I'm grateful
awesome.
for that. Yeah.
Have you done other voiceover work besides?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's in fact, that is when I left Moody for the first time. That's what I did for quite a while, was just doing voiceover work. Back when we used to call it books on tape, now audiobooks, and done a bunch of things
You're
over the years.
dating us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's a voice to be envied. Sometimes I hear myself and it sounds like I'm, hi, Dawn, hi, Steve. And it's like, oh,
do not sound
please.
that
Was that really my voice?
But then I hear other guys who do this professionally, and I'm like, oh man, he's got a great voice. Yeah.
Well, it serves and suits you well. So
Thank
through those years, you were, when you did the morning show for Moody, were you playing music and artists, or was it more talk, or what was the format?
When I started, it was more music, and then they shifted it. One of the presidents wanted to do less music and more content, and so we shifted from 8, 9 songs an hour to 5 max. So yeah, through the years. Now that was at Moody. At the other stations, it was
Right,
it was
right.
music. Yeah.
So who were the big artists during those years?
Well, how far back do you want to go?
In
In 1988, it was Stephen Curtis Chapman was coming out, and Amy Grant, and Philip Craig had not made this scene yet. I'm trying to remember. Gary Chapman was he had music out, and who sang "When God Ran"?
That was.
I can see it on the
I can
cart.
almost say his name. Please don't ever listen to the show.
I don't. Bruce Carroll,
Yeah.
Kenny Marks.
Great names. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff
David
Moore.
Meese, Jeff
Jeff
Moore.
Moore.
Oh, Jeff Moore in the distance.
Yeah.
Love Jeff Moore. Yeah.
So during the Moody years, were those still some of the big names still at that
Well,
point?
Stephen Curtis Chapman,
Of course.
yes.
He's still big.
No, then it started to shift. Then you started to have Phillips, Craig and Dean and Point of Grace. You had For Him, all of these folks that were coming on before. Like I could keep track then, but now I can hardly keep track.
there's
Everybody's
so much.
releasing music, but it was more of a even difficult, I think, for people to get into. Twila Paris.
Oh yeah.
Remember Twila?
Oh
Yeah.
Twila.
Loved
Yeah.
Twila. Sherry Kagi.
Beautiful people.
Pam
I
Pam.
was at Star Song Records when Twila was
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
working under Stan Mosier and Daryl Harris and Jeff Mosley, and working some. I didn't have a lot of direct contact with Twila because I was more in the publishing area. I did help start Phillips, Craig and Dean, so that was
that's
part of
cool.
my little thing there
Love
before I
them.
left Star Song. But I so loved Twila's work. In fact, I was just in a coaching session with one of our clients right before doing this show with you guys, and I actually referred back to a 1988 Twila Paris song because we were talking about the difference in artistic and prosaic lyric. You know, sometimes lyrics can be very prosaic and they're just kind of flat and on the nose. And I was trying to talk about words that probably shouldn't be in a lyric. And then I said, but there are exceptions. And in Twila's 1988 song, Bonded Together, she used the word amalgamation. And I'm like, hey, she was masterful in the way she did that. So, but don't you try to put amalgamation in a song. But
It's a one and done.
so
Don't do it again.
iconic artists, and just we have so much to be grateful for people like that. But so as you were playing those type songs, were there some that you thought, okay, this is a song that can really affect the body of Christ or bring people to Jesus? What were some standouts, maybe, Steve, that you remember even from those days?
Yeah, I mean, when I started in Christian radio, some of those artists were the same ones that I was playing, but then I was also there kind of during the time when Bebo Norman and Mark Schultz and Jeremy Camp and some of these other artists were coming on the scene. A huge fan of Third Day and playing some of their worship stuff back then. And so some of the artists and songs that I remember, one, I think it was Bob Carlyle and Butterfly Kisses.
Of course, yeah.
Massive hit, right? And that was a big thing. I tended to gravitate towards a lot of the story songs. And so, Stephen Curtis Chapman's Cinderella and some of these songs that had story behind them and were written out of relationship so some of those types of songs were a lot of the ones that I tended to gravitate towards. And then a lot of the ones that were vertical in nature, like singing to God instead of just singing about him or singing about us, songs that tended to focus on the character and attributes and nature of God.
Right. For sure. Did you interact with any of the artists, hosting them on your show and interviews and that type of thing? Who are some of the standouts besides Francesca Battistelli?
I mean, there were a lot that came through Chicago over the years because that was the front end of the Moody Network, and so met a lot of artists as they were kind of up and coming and all excited to be there. But I mean, some of the names that you'd expect. Like Michael W. Smith and Stephen Curtis Chapman and these guys who had been in the game for a while, and they were so good in such pros. But then also artists like Jeremy Camp, as he was starting to explode onto the scene a little bit, and coming in, and there's probably video that lives somewhere of the two of us running around because both of us are fans of Superman. And I had a bunch of Superman action figures in my office. And so there's probably videos of us doing mock interviews with Superman somewhere.
Embarrassing video
Hopefully they will never see the light of day.
Yeah. But maybe it wasn't digital back then, right? So
right.
What about you, Dawn? Any standout songs or interviews that you think back on that was impactful?
Yeah, so I look back over, I put this little album together, because that is my brain. When I see pictures, I can remember DeGarmo and Key was one of the ones, and Jeff Moore of Jeff Moore and the Distant, we mentioned his music, but such a kind guy. Loved him, but I also love the artists that never made it to household names exactly. Like do you remember East to West? Mm-hmm. Okay. East to West were in the studio and I don't remember who they were opening for, but got to meet them. And then later, Jay DeMarcus would be, and who knew that was God's plan for
Rascal
him.
Flatts.
Right, Rascal Flatts. I remember Peter Shambrook. I don't know if that name ever rings a bell, but he came into the studio and he was, starting his touring career. Pam Thumb, Tammy Trent, these all became friends. Greg Long, before Avalon was, there was Greg Long. And these folks became friends.
He's a realtor now.
Is he really?
Isn't he? Am I thinking?
Great guy. Could be. I know Whiteheart, Rick Florian became. But again, Whiteheart, super great guy, so kind.
I was with those guys at Star Song back in the day. Yeah.
So when they would talk about what the Lord is doing and how, he guards their hearts, I remember Jeff Moore came to town, and I went down to pick him up from the venue to bring him to the studio. And he goes, "Hey, so nice to meet you. Thanks for having me. Let me grab so-and-so." Just the integrity of bringing somebody with him. And I hadn't experienced that yet. And so young little me was like, huh, what does that? But I appreciated it because I realized it was to protect him, to protect me, just an
very
integrity thing to do, of high integrity. And I just thought so much of his character that day and appreciated that. He was like, yeah, let's do this. Come on, let's go. So
That's
cool.
so good.
Yeah.
What would it feel like to have 52 weeks of access to the right people in Nashville? People who've been making music for decades. People who can answer every question that you have about what pro-level music making is all about. Well, you can get that and more by joining NCS Community. Our community is a group of worldwide dedicated Christian songwriters who want what you want, to glorify God with your gifts and to get your music out there. I hope that you'll consider joining NCS Community today. So you now, let's talk a little bit about your current ministry, Don and Steve Plus. How long have you been doing the show, and going to give us the mission and vision behind it?
Well, we started it in October of 2024.
It's new. It's a baby.
It's pretty new. Yeah, yeah. And so it's been fun. We had done a lot of radio, but podcasting is different than radio. It's similar in some ways, but very different in others. And it's been kind of fun to just experiment and try, and not to have to take a break for a commercial or anything like that. Just to be able to let the conversation go wherever it's going to go, and not to have to worry about what are we going to hit time markers and things like that. So I love doing it.
I think I rambled on in our interview.
No, it's great.
We had a good time.
Yeah,
so what made you start it? I mean, what was the calling to start the show?
I'm going to let you tell it, because mine will get really long.
So we were unexpectedly let go, and then Moody Radio teams across the country were let go recently. So they decided to consolidate and do everything out of their Chicago location. And so if you're in an outlying location, you found yourself looking for, what's next? And so we took a little time and talked about it with our families, prayed about it, trying to decide, should we do a podcast? Because that seemed like the super easy thing to do. Like, we're not intimidated by mics. We could do a podcast, and that'd be easy. But, is that what God would have us do? Do we feel like that would be the right next step? And so after praying about it, talking about it, our families weighing in on it, decided that, I think this is the next step for us.
Yeah, and our team stayed together. Our producer stayed with us, Stephen Briggs. So that was another huge part. So we had 3 families praying as to what we should do. Will we just break up altogether and remain friends, or will we keep working together? And that was great.
And when our spouses, at least for me, but when our spouses were telling us, you guys need to continue to work together because of the chemistry and camaraderie, we're like, okay, that carries a lot of weight.
I feel like Ben and Susie have always been our biggest fans and supporters. They have really hung in there with us and understand that what we do is important to us, that we want to honor the Lord with it and honor our families with it. And they've just really always been behind us.
Yeah.
Talk about the mission behind the podcast. Because I know from having done Song Revolution since 2017, it can be a grind. And just to get through the production every week, booking guests, all the tech, all the editing, everything, especially if you're doing a weekly show, like we've done off and on, a few interruptions for a heart attack here or COVID there, a few interruptions. But we've been fairly consistent over these years. But it can be a grind. So what keeps you going? What's the mission and the vision behind it?
When we started, we just said to the Lord, if there's anything that will bring you glory, if there's any way you'll use this podcast to encourage, inspire, draw people to yourself, we're going to keep showing up because we want to honor you. And the minute you say we're done, then we'll lay it down. Like, this is your podcast. That was the impetus to get us in the chairs again. You said it, we're new, so we're still kind of learning our lane forever because I've only known radio. It was hard for me not to take that mindset and bring it into a podcast studio. But I think we're finally getting it. I think we're finally, we, meaning me.
It takes,
They shift gears really easily, the guys. They know what to do because that's kind of their world. I have to warm up to it. Now I realize the benefits of podcasting and to be able to just hone in then on what's it going to be? What are you going to talk about? We are honing in on the mental health, the soul care. We were talking to our producer one day, and he said, Dawn, when y'all talk about soul care and mental health, you light up. And that's part of my story. And when we talk about the gospel, he lights up. So why not take the podcast down that direction? And we're in the process of kind of tightening it up because we've been all over the place. Just, on radio, we had all kinds of different guests. But now I think the focus is definitely in those areas.
That's great. Can you share some of your story with us? What's behind the soul care?
Sure.
and the mental
Just
health.
remember you asked.
Okay, all right. I did. Here we go.
So, it's funny because as a coworker, I've put him through quite a bit. So the fact that the Lord has kept us together is very kind. In 2020, my daddy took his own life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been quite the journey since then. I knew after that I needed counseling because there's years of difficulty with him. I was very close to him, and yet it was a very challenging relationship. And I knew I needed counseling mainly because I found him, and I needed to get that image out of my head. Thankfully, the Lord had introduced me to such a great counselor, and I called him and said, I don't know if it's going to help, but I think I need to talk to you. But the Lord just used him to teach me so much about mental health and trust, letting go of things. Because we always say, let go and let God. And Lord, I know you've got this. And that's kind of been my thing. Like, Lord, I know you're sovereign. So why do I have to deal with all these emotions? So I just stuff them away. Who needs emotions? But through these last 5 years, the Lord has really used that. And now I see and have so much greater compassion. Like my compassion had dried up. It was there, but it was really, really weak. And that was not normal for me. And not seeing people as much anymore, not being able to walk their story with them because I was too busy walking mine, and I just couldn't separate the difficulty of everything and have empathy and emotion again. So the Lord has taught me all of that.
I mean, that's just outright trauma. I mean, most of us don't find a parent dead like that and have to deal with that trauma. I actually have some friends who have gone through something like that, and it is highly traumatic. But the rest of us deal with day-to-day mental challenges, and in the very mixed up, confusing world we're in, it's exciting to know that mental health is something we can talk more openly about. Because when I was coming up, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I grew up in a very musical home. And, back in those days, and we're talking the 60s and the 70s, and it was a lot of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. And I had things that really needed to be unpacked because of their impact on me, from those days. But it was shameful in the church to talk about. If you went to a therapist, you didn't believe in God. If you had Jesus, you don't need a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist. And we're living in a very different time now, for the most part. I know there are pockets of the church that would still disdain, that side of things. But, we have so much more access to it now. How long were you struggling after your father's death to when you started getting help? Was there a time period there, or was it pretty quickly? Or
November 2nd of 2020 is when he passed, and it was by February.
Okay.
I was.
Okay, so you knew you were ready to
Having
reach out.
conversation.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone who might be struggling, whether it was with trauma like that, maybe childhood trauma, maybe church trauma, maybe other types of trauma that's so ubiquitous? There's a big word you should not ever use in a song. But it's so ever present with us. The world is so ever present with us. What would you say to someone who might be struggling to take that step to work with someone on their mental health?
I would encourage them to find the right counselor and find good friends. Friends that are going to support you, that are going to contain your story and listen and give you good feedback or no feedback. If you don't need feedback, you just need to be heard. But I recently was talking to a young friend who was thinking about counseling but said, I've already done that. It doesn't help. And I've decided that counselors are like shoes. And sometimes they look good, and you try them on, and it pinches, and it doesn't. But you keep looking for the right pair of shoes that serves the purpose of what you need. And I think counselors are that way. You keep looking for that counselor that will give you biblical, if you're a believer, biblical counseling, as well as the neuroscience of what's going on in your brain. Why are you hanging on to story when your other side of your brain is saying you're fine? Why are you struggling with this? And that's me, right? That's a lot of us. If you believe in the sovereignty of God, then you know God's got this. So why am I an emotional mess and can't let this go? Somebody that can help you bring that together. And friends that will say, you need to go to counseling, but find the right one.
Right. Oh, it's huge. And the hardest time to go to the counselor is your first time walking in.
Oh,
You know, I remember the first time I walked into a counselor's office, it was, you feel like everybody knows why you're there. And it just feels like, man, I'm weak. And as a guy, like, I don't want to feel weak. I don't want to look weak. But, you know, I found a good counselor. And after going for a while, I began to realize, like, this is good stuff. Like, you begin to look forward to going because you see the healing and the growth and the change. And as you feel more emotionally healthy and get more emotionally healthy, you start showing up differently for the people in your life too.
It's beautiful.
And so I wanted to be able to show up better for the people in my life. And, you know, having a counselor help you through that process, because sometimes you just don't even know what you don't know. You don't even know where to start or what to do. So having someone there to say, okay, we're gonna talk about this for a while. Now we're gonna go a little bit deeper. We're gonna pivot. We're gonna talk about this. It's huge.
It's beautiful. And I think also in the church world, at least the one I've grown up in, it teaches us that we're selfish if we focus on ourselves. And I know that some people can take self-care to maybe some weird extremes, right?
Sure.
But we need to take care of ourselves or we're not going to be any good for anybody else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm very grateful to the therapists and counselors I've worked with through the years. In fact, I recently had Mandy Morris on the show, and she is an EMDR therapist and does marvelous work. And I've recommended numerous people to her, and she's so good. And we actually did an EMDR session where I'm tapping and we're actually going deep into some things and right here on camera.
Oh,
so,
you did?
Wow.
Yeah, we did.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it was really powerful
Yeah.
to demonstrate that and to talk about rewiring the brain, because we do get stuck. Our brains get those grooves, and we're helpless, really. You know, and the church calls so much mental illness sin. The behaviors maybe that emanate from those things, addiction or the behavior patterns that are destructive to us and to people around us. And they're like, well, you could just stop that. And it's like, well, yeah, right. I mean, maybe in some alternate universe, I could just stop it. But there are needs I'm trying to meet. I'm trying to protect myself. I'm trying to heal myself with those things. And I'm helpless, you know. And so even Romans 7, you know, Paul talking, bewailing that the things he doesn't want to do or the things he does, he probably had some PTSD or something from getting caught up into the third heavens with Christ or something. I don't know what. I know that could mess you up, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's sad, you know, that we sometimes look down on that, but also very hopeful that we can move into that. So it's fun. It's fun to see people focusing on that. So, Andy, do you have a regular counselor, psychologist that comes on your show? Were we talking about that a while ago? Who is
We
that?
do.
Who is that, and what are some of the shows that our listeners today should go back and catch?
Yeah, his name's Phil Herndon, and he's in Middle Tennessee. He's fantastic. And, there are a couple of shows and topics that we've talked about that stand out for me. One is when we were talking about dealing with a narcissist. And he was talking about, I think it was neuroreflectors, that narcissists don't actually have neuroreflectors. That's the thing that allows, if I say something to you, that allows you to physically, in a sense, react to what I'm saying, and then I read that off of you, and then they're missing that in some way. And so they're like, it's not that they are necessarily so self-focused that they are choosing to focus on themselves in this way. It's like they lack the ability and capacity to have the empathy and to be able to read these things and whatever. And like, that was a light bulb moment for me as I thought about some of the relationships and people in my life who I would say are either just flat out narcissist or have narcissistic tendencies. I'm like, maybe they actually can't.
Yeah, they didn't
different.
choose that for themselves. Yeah.
And so maybe I need to adjust my expectation of them, and I need to have different boundaries and expectations because I'm trying to put something on them that they actually can't do. And so to protect me then, it's not you need to change your behavior. It's like I need to change my behavior and my expectation.
And the boundaries
Right.
that are needful in that kind of a relationship. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean you don't care for them or want the best. But yeah.
Yeah, and we've talked about addictions, and one of the most impactful things he shared with us is that an addiction is looking for connection. So let's say it's alcohol you're addicted to. That bottle will always be there. That bottle's not going to fail you. It's not a person. It can't have a relationship with you, but you can have a relationship with it because you are going to that thing to alleviate pain, to have that connection. And it makes so much sense. If you're dealing with an addiction or you have a loved one that is, then you realize they are just looking for that heart connection. The brain's rewired because of the addiction, and that dopamine hit they're always looking for when they need it with connection with another human being, and obviously, ultimately with the Lord. But they're finding the consistency in the bottle or the pill or the whatever it is. So it's always there. Like, we fail one another, but the object doesn't ever fail. It's always there.
Yeah, and there's always forgiveness in the Lord spiritually for our failings, for our acting out addiction or behaviors, that are unhelpful, unskillful, and even destructive. But there are those neurological, physiological triggers, right? And wow, it's fascinating. I'm sure there's a wonderful library of shows. How often do you release? 3 days a week?
3 days.
3 days a week.
3 days a week. Wow. God bless you. I know the grind that is.
That's why it takes a small team to do it.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it really, really does. And I'm grateful for the team here today. Bryant is behind the camera today, and we have other folks that help us out. But tell us where to access your show, Don and Steve Plus.
Any platform.
Yeah, donandsteveplus.com is the website. You can go find out more about us there. And then pretty much any podcasting platform, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you supported as a nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit.
You are a nonprofit? Okay. Well, we're going to put your link in our show notes. We'll make sure that everyone who listens to Song Revolution will know that they can find some great things at Don and Steve Plus. All right. Don Ray May, Steve Hiller, thanks so much for being with us today on Song Revolution.
Thanks for having us.
All right, you guys, love the show, love these people. Check out their link in the show notes. And for goodness sake, if you're struggling mentally, emotionally, get some help. Do yourself, the world, God, and your loved ones a favor by getting whole and following God into all the wholeness that He has provided for us in Christ. You know, God uses counselors and therapists and medications, and He uses things like that. He's created all of that for you as an expression of His deep love. So thanks for being here. Be sure to check out all that we offer at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on today's show. If you got some value, please help us share the love. Leave a like and a share and a good review. Be sure to check out everything that we have to offer you at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. We'll see you next time.